Hi, folks. This is Colin Richards here on Lord and Richards Radio, and I'm thrilled to be with you today, talking to you on the subject of lending to God. As you know, often in this first segment of Lord and Richards Radio, we address a key biblical principle that guides us at Lord and Richards in our planning and the financial advice and counsel that we give to people just like you every single day. Because, you know, folks that we're talking to are a little bit worried about what's going on in the world and how that's going to impact you and your finances, and particularly those who are preparing for retirement. So we want to make sure we have a good foundation based on God's Word. And today we're going to look at actually two Proverbs. The first is found in Proverbs 19:17. Whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord, and He, God, will repay him for his deed. So that's the first one. Another one just across the page looks very similar, but it's the opposite. It's the corollary. Whoever closes his ear to the cry of the poor will himself call out and not be answered. And so in these two Proverbs, we have quite a contrast. Those who are generous to the poor versus those who close their ears to the poor. In the first of those two Proverbs, we learn that giving to the poor invokes what I call divine math. What's happening here is that God ensures us that when we give to the poor, we will be repaid with divine interest, not humanly calculated interest. Can you imagine the difference between the interest you can earn from God versus an earthly loan? Most borrowers, when we go to make an earthly loan, when we lend out money, the borrower wants to pay the very minimum in interest. And if they're a good borrower, they may command a low interest rate. And they want the best terms for themselves. And this, of course, forces the lender, the person who's making the investment through lending, to keep rates low in order to stay competitive. That's just how it works. For example, if you wanted to perhaps buy a bond, that's a form of a loan that you make to a corporation or a government or maybe to your community to build a school or some other project. However that works, today bonds typically pay pretty low interest unless you're willing to take more risk, right? To get involved with a corporate project that might be a little bit less solid financially. And then you're going to have the risk of the loss of your money. As Will Rogers once said, it's not the return on my investment I'm so much concerned about, but the return of my investment. And so often to get good rates, good interest on a loan, you have to take more risk and risk the loss of your own money. However, lending to God doesn't come with any risk whatsoever. And by giving to the poor, you're going to get the maximum return on your investment because God, again, uses divine math. So when you give away money, you might see it as giving it away, but God sees it just as a loan, which He Himself plans to repay. So think of the ways today that you can be generous to the poor, whether in your community or through your church, or as we here at Lord and Richards do, through our giving to the least wealthy people in the world on the mission field, people who are some of the most unreached and most neglected. As you know, Lord and Richards began a foundation years ago, and we take profits and place it in that foundation to begin churches and do work in schools and so forth. And we are glad today to support all over Asia those who have the very least in the way of resources, who are often doing some of the most in the way of good for the kingdom. Now, in the second proverb that I read earlier, Proverbs 20:13, the writer is warning the person who closes his ears to the cry of the poor. It says, if you close your ear to the cry of the poor, you will yourself call out and not be answered. Perhaps the needs around us can become overwhelming, right? You see people looking for handouts. You begin to even question how needy they are. And so we simply shut them all out to avoid any guilt or having to make decisions or exercise discernment. However, God expects us to listen to His voice, to be discerning, to do your homework, and to be faithful then in helping others when there's a genuine need. You know, it's almost certain that one day you yourself are going to have a need. It may not be financial, but it might. But it could be another type of need, emotional or spiritual. And what God is telling us is that there is a principle that those who fail to lend to the poor, those who shut their ears to the cry of the poor, are going to find themselves, when in need, receiving the same treatment back. Oh, my friend, you don't want to experience that. You want to have people who rush to your aid, right? Well, be discerning, get involved, and find ways that you can give to the poor. Again, at Lord & Richards, we love doing that in a way that advances God's kingdom, where we do our research, where we can find ways to help some of the least wealthy people in all of the world in the way of resources, but who are doing so much good for the kingdom. Well, giving is a strategy that also yields a variety of other benefits, including tax advantages. And for our clients who are charitably minded at Lord & Richards, one of their big concerns is, hey, Colin, I don't want to leave all my money to the government or to nursing homes and hospitals. I'd like to give it to the poor or to missions or to family. So how do I ensure a legacy that doesn't leave all my money going to taxes? Well, that's where financial planning comes in. And at Lord & Richards, we help you become financially independent so you can use the bountiful resources that God has entrusted you to do good and to do amazing things for others. It really all just begins with what we call a financial independence review, where we sit down together and help you determine, are you ready to retire? Are you on the right track for financial independence? Or are adjustments going to be needed? And then we build a comprehensive financial plan that includes all the major areas of planning. For us, it simply begins with a conversation that we can have with you over the phone or in person.